All right. So, as we're coming this way, right, going downhill, in transition, you got the 4 taking it out and they're trailing. So the 4 is going to be the trailer. All right. The 1 has the point guard. We want to get the 2s and the 3s running the floor to the corners just to get wide, but really sprinting. And then obviously we got the 5 rim running. So that's how the play would work, or how we want to get set up to start in transition. Once we get here, all right, we'll go this side because it's reversed on the camera, but all right. So let's say we have the 2 here, 3 here, the 4 here. This is inside the volleyball line. And then the 5 is going to get to the ball side or opposite the ball, it doesn't really matter, into the dunker spot, which is nice and low here. We don't want them posting up right away. All right, we want them ducking in, and we'll go over that a little bit more next practice and things like that. So how I see the basketball court and how a lot of coaches see the basketball court is once we get into our half court offense, right? The idea of the game of basketball is to try to get as many high quality shots as possible, right? So we want to try to, what a lot of coaches will say, get a piece of the paint. So somehow, some way, we want to get into the paint, whether it's a post touch, whether it's a penetration, whether it's an action that we do. We need to attack the paint. A lot of coaches will say, get 2 feet in the paint, or I like to say, get a piece of the paint. We got to get a piece of the paint, and that should be our philosophy. So in order to get a piece of the paint or get into the paint, because that sucks the defense in, and then we can kick out or we can play out of that if the defense is spread out. So we need to try to figure out a better way to get into the paint and attacking downhill. So attacking this way and this way and this way and this way, instead of, I know we talked about it a little bit, the practice we had and in the game, instead of playing around the perimeter, right? Like, you don't want to be going in here. Everything that we should do is trying to get us turning the corner, getting downhill, all of those things. Now, you can't do that right away every single time, but if you do some little actions or you have an idea of what you're doing, it makes things a lot easier. All right. So we'll go back to our spots, and that's really for 5 out or for a 4 out, 1 in, which is what we have here. So let's say we have the dunker spot right here. All right. So how I see the basketball court and how a lot of coaches see the basketball court, and as a point guard or anybody really as a perimeter player, you should really think of the court being split in half. Okay. So if the ball is over here, right, it's a 2-man game. You got a 2-man game going on over here. Now if the 5 comes over here, then that becomes a 3-man game. Okay, so in the 2-man game, you got like dribble handoffs, side ball screens, ghost actions, give and goes, slips, all of those things. But that's when the ball is on this side of the court. Now, or backdoor cuts, all of those things. You can dribble it. If the 5 is over here, you can dribble this guy into the post. You can do all of those things that are common basketball terms. But when the defense is set and you're playing against a really good defense, right? I used to like to say, good offense beats good defense sometimes. And, I used to judge myself on how could we score against the best defenses, all right? And how can we get a bucket against the best defense, or just quality shots every single time? So when you're playing against a good defense, the defense is set, and they're playing from the inside out, and they're keeping the ball in front of you, all of those things. How do you get the ball into the paint? How do you get a piece of the paint? How do you get a touch? You can't drive on all 5 of these guys, right? If one drives here, he's got help, whatever. So we need to get the defense to kind of extend or play from behind so that we can attack. So the best way to do that is ball reversals. I think I told you that there's a stat out there that, like, teams in college would score 15% of the time when the ball wasn't reversed. And then it would go up like 15 to 20% every time the ball was reversed. And when I'm talking about reversal, it's really just the ball is over here, getting it to the other side of the floor is reversing it. So there's a couple of ways that we can do that. So first one, which is great in transition, that we kind of did a couple times and it worked, is the 4 just coming over and dragging the 1. So the 1 can come down and come downhill. He can dump off to the 5. The 5 should circle like this when he's penetrating, so if he helps, he can dump it off. A lot of times our adage is don't help off the corner 3. The corner 3 is like the most high percentage shot now, and people are NBA, whatever, college, are like paying people millions of dollars to just make corner 3s. So we don't help off the corner 3. All right, we'll trade a 2 for a 3 any day defensively, but a lot of teams are undisciplined and a lot of players are undisciplined. So if they step up to help, then you got the drive and kick there, or he can kind of float up a little bit. You also have the roll there. All right, so the guy can roll. Now look at this. If he rolls to the front, then you're staying on the same side. But let's say the 4, all right, let's say the 4 now screen there and then kept going and screens the 2. If the 1 can't turn the corner, or if he dribble handoffs right here, all right, now you got a screen coming over here and you got the 2 either curling or coming up for a shot right there. So now you've actually gotten the ball reversal with the 1 coming to the top, or coming over to this side. And now we have an action over here. And now we're actually reversing the ball twice. So we're changing sides of the court. So if you hear me talk about ball reversals, or let's switch the sides of the court, all right, they talk about it in hockey and soccer and lacrosse, switch it, because everybody will be on one side defensively. And if you can get a switch, get the ball switched to the other side of the court, change other sides of the court, swinging it, reversing it, it's just harder to guard. Teams will then have to close out because they'll be like right here, and the ball is going to be like, if a guy comes in here and he passes over to a guy right here, then he has to close out, and then that's when you really attack closeouts and become a basketball player and attacking closeout. If you listen to the game last night, WNBA game, all of those things, they're always talking about actions and getting downhill and getting a piece of the paint and attacking closeouts and putting people in position to really be good basketball players and utilize their skill. And like I said, we have a lot of skilled basketball players on this team. But I think sometimes it's thinking and playing at the same time. How can the offense that we create and we look for it to do, how can we make it simpler so you don't have to try as hard offensively? You're just doing certain things. So right there, we started with a drag screen, right? The 4 dragged the 1, and then we had things. The 4 can, instead of just standing there waiting, the 4 could, if we still have this middle guy, all right, the 4 could drag that. We could play through the trailer. So let's say 1 passes it to 4 there, all right? Now 4 has the ball. Now we've reversed it once, but the 4 is probably not going to be able to do much. You could do, which we'll call like a pitch. The 1 could get downhill off of the 4's guy, and if the 4 is a good driver, Miles, Tyler, like a small 4 or a 4 that can go right hand, even Maddox or JP, he could kind of come here and do a dribble handoff, and then a 4 can attack. And now we've switched the ball. LC Bird does that a lot, and when we went to the state championship at LC Bird, we ran that little play a ton to Ant Harris, who ended up being a safety in the NFL. But the point guard would just go by his guy a little bit and get into here, and then the 4 would trail behind him. If you ever watch Bird play, they do that a lot. And Calipari does it a lot with Kentucky, Memphis when he was there, Arkansas. So that's a way to get there. But let's say the 4 has the ball now right here, kind of in no man's land. All right. the 4 isn't necessarily for us isn't necessarily a take the guy off the dribble type guy. But we can do a lot of things out that. All right, he could take 2 dribbles, and 3 could do like a dribble handoff here. All right, so you got the dribble handoff there. All right, now 3 isn't going to just try to come to where the ball came from. He's going to try to turn the corner and get downhill, and you have 1 probably has to occupy the backside after he makes that pass by either screening away here or doing like a split screen here, or just interchanging where they interchange, and then you got our 3-man coming off with his right hand or left hand, whatever he is, getting downhill trying to get a piece of the paint. But those are really like handoffs and throwing over and then going to screen it. All right, ball screen it and then trying to get downhill there. All right, you can also, just like we do in that 4 out type thing, the practice where we do the 4-man passing, where you got to come to the ball hard and you got to break the glass and show your outside hand. 3 could do that too. 3 could, I don't like to call it V cut, but he could V cut here, all right, and just get open with the ball. And now the 3 has the ball on the corner here, and we have a 3-man game. All right, 5 could UCLA screen for the 4, try to get a bucket, and then ball screen. All right, 5 could also come over here. 5 could duck in. All right, the 4 can now, let's say the 1 went and screen. Now the 4 can kind of come over here and drag screen. And now you got the 2 coming off a staggered double screen and might have a shot right here for 3, or maybe the 4 slips it, or maybe the 2 curls it, and then the 4 screens again for the 1, and now he's the guy who's out here. I know that's a lot of necessarily ink right there, but if the 3 has the ball here, the 4 now has options. All right, so now the 4 has to make it. The 4 could also basket cut. If they just want a basket cut here and then fill out, now we're still in our 4 out, and maybe the 3, what you'll see a lot of, and this is what people like to talk about. All right, so you have defense right here, an action to create a double gap. All right, so this guy right here, if 3 has the ball, there's an X right here, so that's a single gap. So if he drives into this gap, there's defense there. If 4 screens away, all right, if he screens for the 1 or cuts through or fills the same side, if he cut through it, he cut through all the way through, or fills the same side, now there's nobody here now. And now you see this is a double gap, and that's when you have to face the basket instead of going up here like a lot of us do and just coming back to where the 4 came from. This is when you turn the corner and you're trying to beat your guy and try to get a piece of the paint into this double gap. So the double gap is really important and a really great time. When you see the double gap, that's when you drive. Young players and guys who are trying to force it a lot of times, they'll drive single gaps, and that's when they try to get the ball over and get it stolen, or they get what I call too deep. So let's say there's a single gap right here and you're trying to drive here, and these guys converge on you and you get too deep and you don't have anywhere to go. You pick up your dribble, you can't throw it to the 2 because now you're in this no man's land right here because you picked up your dribble. So those are some of the things you like to do. You want to get the ball moving as quickly as possible, or actions to get as quickly as possible. All right, the 1, a great way to do it. All right, and we did this in practice, and we kind of set it up, but it didn't really work too much in the game. But the 1 can, hit the 2 here, so the 2 gets open, and then the 1, and then he comes same side, right? And now this guy can come ball screen for the 2, and now he can turn. All right, and look for the ball and look to turn the corner there, and we got kick out, dump off, things like that. Now the 5, you might think the 5 can just sits there. All right, well, the 5 can, when we have it spaced, the 5 can do some stuff. He can do it, and we kind of had it. I know Cam went baseline the other day and just didn't make the pass and kind of got stuck in no man's land down here. But the 5 can always, if the ball goes here and these guys go away, he can always come and set a side ball screen here. He can set a strong ball side screen here, right? Side ball screen, you're kind of going baseline. Strong ball side, you're going into the middle and roll, and then you have a 2 game between y'all. So let's say the ball got to the 3, 4 goes away, 1 goes away here to the 2, all right? And now you have a 2-man game just with these guys, and they can figure it out there. The 5 can also UCLA screen, right? Which is a great one, right? He can also, and we'll get into this a little practice, but like he can also follow. So like if we drag, let's say the 1 is here and the 4 is here and the 5 gets caught here, if like the 1, if we call it, he can set a screen here and he can come up and set another double screen here if we kind of call the double drag. Or let's say the 5 didn't get all the way to the rim and he's like right here on transition. He can now come and set a second ball screen, so we have a double drag there, and all just getting somebody to get from one side to the other downhill. All right. Another good one for the 5. All right, if the 5 kind of gets caught in no man's land and doesn't know what they're doing and just kind of getting bored or whatever, and we worked on this, is we can, and we'll continue to work on this, the 5 can pop to the top of the key, all right? If or let's say he pops here to the free throw line, and let's say we get in the 1, 2, 4. Like I said, all of these guys are interchangeable, and the 4s and 5s are interchangeable too with our guys a lot of times. But let's say 1 passes it to 2, all right? 5 could set a screen here and look for 1 to get downhill. What have we done again? We've got the ball to the 2, and now that's 1 ball reversal, and then we get him downhill. He could set a screen there, then he could go set a screen for the 5. So he can work this little, what they'll call like, the 5 can work this little triangle right here. So they're not just standing in the post doing nothing. If they're not in the triangle, if they're not posting, all right, they should be down low in the dunker spot looking for dump offs and things like that. But we can even extend that a little bit, and the 5 can now pop here as like a safety outlet, get his big man, because his 5s are the big, get the big man away from the basket. If it's Miles is the 5, he ought to be able to take another big man, off, where the 1 could set a guard to big screen, and 5 could get going downhill that way. Or what I really love, and it's really hard to guard, is if the 5 gets here, and we got the 4 and the 1 and the 2 and the 3, the ball gets up here. If he's looking this way, remember, this is another big thing, and I should have talked about this earlier. If the ball is on this side, let's say the ball is on this side, and they're going, you got 4 guys out, right? When the ball is on this side, these guys can't run across here or do anything. They got to wait till the ball comes to their side to really look to score or anything like that. Like if he screens down and this guy comes, then you can get a part of the action. But otherwise, just wait, see what they're going to do on this side. And then if we haven't dragged it right away, then it's your turn. So it's like 3 sides. You're like this side of the court, and then this side of the court is in the action and doing certain things. So you got to play off of each other. If the ball is over here, or let's say the ball is on the wing over here, and you're doing stuff over here, he ain't going to be able to see you. So if the ball is up top, like here with the 5, all right, these guys can't do the same thing at the exact same time. 1 and 2, 4 and 3 can't do things at the exact same time, because it just doesn't make sense, because 5 might be looking over here. If they're doing stuff over there, you can't really see them. So the timing has to be there, and that's all feel and experience and reps, and that's what we'll work on in practice. But if 5 is here, let's say he's looking towards the 1 and the 2, this is when we do that little split action where 1 comes, they both run towards each other and meet in the middle. I used to call them come-togethers. So they come together, and then you got options. 1 can backdoor, 2 can backdoor, 3, if you wanted to, or 2 could, the other option, 2 could just run to the 5 and get the ball screen and then try to turn the corner and get downhill there. Or 5 could dribble over a little bit and then do that. But that's when you can kind of really try to get downhill. I know a lot of that is confusing and it's a lot of markers and stuff like that. But, and obviously I've seen the game and in my head I can see the reps and things like that. But if you start watching the game from that perspective and understanding what teams are doing and the actions that they're doing and the why, it's all about getting downhill, even flare screens. So flare screens are great in this. And when I was at Benedictine with Coach Jones, some of y'all play for Coach Jones and stuff. When I was at Benedictine, we were a top 25 team in the country, and we upset a lot of people. Beat Jamal Murray's team, and the only teams we lost to were top 25 teams in the country, other top 25s, but we beat some too. Is if this guy has the ball here, this guy would come and flare the backside, and then you throw over the top, and then you get downhill, and you got rollers and things like that. But flares are another great thing that hopefully we can add. I know last year, if you played on the team, we flared the zone a lot, which I love. And if you watch Connecticut games from last year, they love the flare screen, and I do too. And that's why I think Dan Hurley and Bill Murray's son, Luke Murray, who's at UConn, are geniuses when it comes to their offense and things like that. So tons of different ways to get the ball to where you were, or where it needs to be, which is in the paint and off the dribble, things like that. But the real thing that we don't do a good job of, and you're young and inexperienced and stuff like that, is we're all going around the arc. And we really need to get downhill into the paint as much as possible. Now, the best way to do it again is the double gaps. How can we create the double gaps, the open gaps to take advantage of those? Like I said, it's hard to drive the single gaps, but the double gaps, how can your actions open up those double gaps? And that's the game of basketball. NBA, college, good high school teams. Sometimes that's just having better players and things like that. But when you're good and the other team is good, how can you get a bucket? All right, is it going to be your defensive pressure? Is it going to be your offensive rebounding? Those are great, and those usually work, but really the good teams, their offense beats their other team's good defense and puts pressure on the paint as much as possible. So that's my little, probably too long. Hopefully you can bear with me for 20 minutes just to understand the game. Happy to answer any questions. Put it on the chat, put it in a group text, something like that. Or a text to me, and I'll work to you or try to send you some other film to get a better idea, since haven't really done these things before, but would like to do more of them. So let me know. See you guys Saturday. Can't wait to get back on the floor with you guys. Later.